Even if you've read the Bible's Old Testament recently, or perhaps aren't an overtly religious person to begin with, you most likely will still have heard the tale of Noah's Ark. Here's a quick rundown before things get all anomalous. God appears to a man named Noah, warning him that he plans to unleash a flood. This disaster will engulf the entire earth and allow the world a chance to begin anew, washed clean for a fresh start. God tells Noah that he has appointed him to carry out a task ahead of the coming flood. This task was to gather two, a male and a female of every possible type of animal, and ensure that the creatures survive the coming flood. And so Noah and his family did this. They rounded up two of every animal from every species, and two by two they were herded onto a huge wooden boat, Noah's Ark. Now, granted, it does seem pretty unfeasible that one man and his family were able to gather at least two of every animal in the entire world. And yes, there currently exists no scientific evidence that a simultaneous global flood is possible, or that the boat described in the Bible ever actually existed in the first place. And lastly, we know what you're probably already thinking. Are we about to reveal that this video's SCP is the actual ark that Noah used to survive the flood? Or was he maybe gifted some anomalous item that allowed him to fit all the animals inside? All good guesses. But no, that's not where we're going with this. We only bring up Noah's Ark because it's the perfect segue into the real topic of today's video, SCP-6008. So let's set the stage and turn our focus away from the time of the Old Testament to almost 80 years in our future. The year is 2100 New Year's Day, and planet Earth is on the brink of destruction. At this time, SCP-6008 is the designation given to the ongoing damage being done to the environment, the threat of rising sea levels caused by global warming. It is due to these inevitable disasters that the SCP Foundation, in their wisdom, has realized that a number of their containment facilities and other sites are at risk of being destroyed by environmental collapse. So to combat this, what do? Use some anomalous technology like SCP-2000, or a powerful reality warping entity to reverse the damage done to Earth? No. They naturally start building facilities in place that are higher up and less likely to be ruined by a climate disaster, as this was a little more practical than taking the anomalous nuclear option. Aware of the impending devastation the Foundation and the world faced, the O5 Council found themselves holding strategy conferences with the Ethics Committee, as well as O4 Command. Bear in mind the O4s are a different team within the Foundation than the O5 Council. The Council, as you are probably aware, are the supreme overseers of the entire organization, with executive power over every facet of its operation, or at least that's their role in a nutshell. They also happen to be immortal and have been at the head of the SCP Foundation for perhaps centuries, but let's not stray too far off topic here. On the other hand, the O4 Command is almost like a subdivision, whose functions is to declare and implement the lockdown of the Foundation facilities. If a site is compromised, either by an SCP breaching containment or, say, by an environmental disaster, then O4 Command's job is to declare a lockdown, call in assistance from another site, and otherwise carry out the proper security protocols to handle the occurrence. The point of their conference was to determine whether or not the SCP Foundation was within its rights to use anomalous means to combat the effects of climate change. On the one side of the argument, from the stance of the Ethics Committee, the Foundation had a duty and responsibility to protect and safeguard the people of planet Earth. Unless they did something, humanity would be doomed. The counterpoint was that the Foundation had no right to interfere and change the fate of the world on a whim. Not like they've ever done that before, right? Ultimately, the O5 Council had the final say and voted not to employ their anomalous resources to prevent catastrophe. According to them, humanity had caused this themselves, and the SCP Foundation had no right to interfere. Instead, they focused on protecting the organization itself. Their relocation operation commenced in the latter half of 2100, with all Foundation facilities in the northeastern United States placed in a near-permanent state of high alert. 24 anomalous breaches occurred, and a total of 16 mobile task forces were deployed to either recontain these SCPs or eliminate them. All the while, with threats from the environment looming ever closer, the Foundation's Ethics Committee was still pushing for something to be done to help the civilians that would fall victim to the catastrophe. They drafted up plans and proposals to assist some 11 billion refugees, but these were once again rejected by Overwatch Command. Instead, their plan hinged on the activation of SCP-2000, an underground Foundation facility designed to be used for the reconstruction of human civilization following an XK-class end-of-the-world scenario. In other words, it's a human factory, capable of recreating our entire species in the event of total global extinction. This drew the attention of one Miss D.C. Alphine, the Undersecretary of the Global Occult Coalition. Her intention was to act on behalf of the GOC to directly intervene in the Foundation's plans for the approaching environmental disasters. However, certain members of the O5 Council didn't seem too open about sharing their strategies, claiming that the Foundation was doing nothing to prevent the oncoming ecological apocalypse, nor did they have a contingency in place. However, one of the council members, O5-12, otherwise known as Nakeda, approached Miss Alphine shortly after this meeting. According to him, there were a number of the council who shared Alphine's sentiments that the Foundation's resources could be used to preserve human life, even if they could not be seen as preventing the end of the world. Nakeda took the opportunity to introduce Alphine to something known only as the Genesis Initiative. Over the course of the next year, mercenaries working for the GOC attempted to steal a number of anomalies from the SCP Foundation. Their hands forced, the O5 Council ordered the termination of 98% of their contained entities and objects. And in retaliation, MTF Alpha-1, the Red Right Hand, was sent to hunt down the GOC leaders. Among the SCPs destroyed by GOC mercenaries was SCP-2000, which wasn't the Foundation's secret contingency plan, but the backup in case Nakeda's Genesis Initiative failed, or as he described it, a restart button for the entire planet. Alphine had ordered SCP-2000's destruction, hoping it would get the Genesis Initiative off the ground, forcing the O5 Council to allow this plan to go forward. It was a tragedy of errors. Fiend believed that SCP-2000 was only a boot-up system for the O5 Council, not all of humanity. Nakeda was unconvinced, claiming that humanity's only hope was something he referred to as Noah. And for Alphine, she went missing during the evacuation of New York City, never appearing at any refugee sites or even being spotted by facial recognition. Who or what was the Noah that Nakeda had so much faith in? Well, rather than its biblical namesake, this Noah wasn't a person, but an artificial intelligence. An AIC, or Artificially Intelligent Conscript for those who are not yet aware, is an advanced form of artificial intelligence that the Foundation developed and uses to run its systems. So what was the purpose of the Noah AIC? To protect the last living organisms on planet Earth and complete the final stages of the Genesis Initiative. With the destruction of SCP-2000, countless physical samples of the world's genetic history had been lost. DNA taken from every species of creature and plant on Earth had been stored at the SCP-2000 facility, and all of them were now destroyed. However, there did still exist a digital database containing the information on all of those genetic blueprints. It fell to the Noah AIC to come up with ways that this data could be used to somehow save the organisms of planet Earth. The goal of the Genesis Initiative became a race for the solution of how to use this information about the genetics of every species to somehow recreate those species after the world had ended. Or to put it more plainly, this artificial intelligence had to figure out how to 3D print all life on Earth. At this point, it had been over 100 years since the destruction of SCP-2000. The damage to the environment was not reversing as some had hoped, and humanity was on its last legs. During a routine life extension procedure being carried out by Noah, O5-12 Jonathan Nakeda was much the same, nearing the end of his extended lifespan. At 246, he was tired, having lived longer than humans were naturally meant to. And perhaps due to cellular degradation over many decades, or maybe just because he couldn't bear to continue, Jonathan passed away on September 13, 2204. Over another 100 years later, in 2367, the Noah AIC was able to reawaken a version of Nakeda's consciousness, a construct that the AIC assembled from memories the Overseer had scanned into Noah's database. The artificial intelligence had hoped to call on Nakeda's advice one final time, only able to maintain the construct for a short while. The AIC had come to realize that Earth was a lost cause. Humanity had all but dwindled into extinction by this point, but Noah had a plan. He was able to generate nanoscale assembly robots, essentially microscopic machines that could be used to build things. Noah had activated Jonathan's consciousness construct to ask for permission to divert all of its processing power into constructing something that could, potentially, restore humanity as well as all other life on the now dead Earth. It would take a long time to complete, but perhaps the Genesis Initiative's goals were still driving Noah to strive for a solution, even in the wake of extinction. When asked by the persistent AIC for permission in setting its plan in motion, Jonathan answered from beyond the grave, "We're all dead, my friend. Do what you think is best." So all of this brings us back to the biggest unanswered question. What even is SCP-6008? What does this long, complex story have to do with the story of Noah's Ark? Well, think about it for a moment. Both stories feature a natural disaster that threatens the entire world, every man, woman, and child. And Noah's Ark was intended to preserve life in the wake of the flood. And that is the exact purpose of SCP-6008. It is a database containing a history of our entire species. Not just history, but the future as well. In fact, SCP-6008 has a digital record of the genetic heritage of all life on Earth, every animal, plant, and person. It is held within a containment vessel appropriately named Noah's Ark, as it was built by the AIC to travel through space towards a safe haven. And what exactly was this safe haven? A planetary system known by the designation of TOI 178b, otherwise nicknamed Jonathan's Hope, after Jonathan Nakeda, the O5 Council member who had hoped humanity could be saved. The journey from Earth to Jonathan's Hope was over 200 light-years in distance, but perhaps salvation would be waiting when the Ark finally arrived. Just like in the Bible story, under the watchful eye of the Noah AIC, SCP-6008 is set to reach its destination in over 100,000 years, when humanity can hopefully begin again without repeating the mistakes that drove them from Earth in the first place. And hopefully we can get our act together down here and stop things from getting worse before a future this bleak ever comes to be. Now go check out Secret Group That Runs the World SCP-05 Council Explained and SCP-2000 Deus Ex Machina for more of the groups and anomalies discussed in this video.